Hello everyone, this is Ali MK Hindi and we're back for another weekly video. So, continuing on our series looking at PhD thesis writing 101. Last week we talked about the introduction chapter. This week we're going on to the literature review chapter. Now some people have it as a separate chapter, some people incorporate it with the introduction chapter. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my content, I've already done an entire series looking at literature reviews in detail. So the type of literature reviews you can do, coming up with the search strategy, the tools you could use, how you do critical appraisal, synthesis, and so on. So for those of you that are interested in the details, reach out to me and I can give you the links to the series. For the purpose of this series, we're just going to focus on the examiner's point of view, what they want to see when looking at your literature review chapter. So let's dive right into it. As you are familiar right now, I like to use a question approach. So what are the 4 questions that you would want to have answered in your literature review chapter? Number 1, what is the purpose of your literature review? And I know this sounds very straightforward, but surprisingly, sometimes people get this wrong. So as you are aware, your PhD thesis is going to be covering a certain topic area. But what I want to know when reading it is what are the aims or research questions of your literature review? Because when doing a literature review, you need a starting point. And that's really where it gets a bit tricky. You want to strike a balance, so you don't want your research question or aims to be too broad, where you end up gathering so much literature, most of which is irrelevant. At the same time, you don't want it to be too specific that you're unable to identify meaningful papers. So that's what I mean. You have to have a research question which is clear and has that balance where it's not too broad, but at the same time, it's not too specific. Once you've got that answered, I also want to know, how did you find the papers? So I want all the details, the search terms you used, what was your inclusion and exclusion criteria, what databases you used to search for the papers, as well as now more recently AI tools. So you have to be very clear, and I always say this, be transparent, especially in a PhD thesis. You have the allocated space and word count to do so. Just a quick note here though, particularly with regards to the inclusion-exclusion criteria. If you find yourself that there are a lot of papers which you're unsure if they're to be included or excluded, that means you might need to refine your inclusion-exclusion criteria. So once I've got full transparency on how you found the papers, I want to know what are the key findings of your literature review. And think about the themes. What are the themes that are coming out? What are the trends? Please do not just summarize. This is where a lot of literature review results go wrong. I don't just want a summary of what's out there. I want you to input your sort of lens, your researcher lens, your analytical lens. Tell me, what are the themes that came out? What are the trends when you looked at all these papers together? Are the findings in line? Are they contradictory? And so on. I want that to come out. I don't want it just to be a mere summary of 10 papers looked at this, 5 papers looked at that. No. So think themes and trends. And another point which a lot of people miss in the key findings is, what is the overall quality of the literature? So now that you found whatever 20, 30, 50 papers and you're talking about them, what is the quality? Are they good quality? Are they reliable? Are they not? And even sometimes when people use critical appraisal tools, they still don't give an overall assessment of the quality of the literature. And that's really important. That's something as an examiner that I would be looking for. So yes, they've come up with trends and themes, but are they aware of the quality of the literature that they're using? So make sure to include that. And last but not least, what are the key gaps you identified? So obviously you started off by doing a literature review to identify gaps in the literature that are gonna inform your empirical research. So make it very clear that having done this literature review, these are the gaps we identified, and these are the gaps we're going to address in the PhD thesis. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, but remember, not all research gaps are created equal. So even if you found a gap, you still have to justify that it's worth addressing. So that, in my estimation, covers the 4 questions that you want to be able to answer when writing the literature review chapter. Once again, for those of you that are interested in the specifics, I've done an entire series on literature reviews that goes into more details. Give me a shout out if you want the link to these. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this or you found it valuable, like, comment, repost, and do all the great things we do in social media. Peace and love, everyone.